Good morning or afternoon, or I don't know, it all runs together at this point. It's some point in the day, and we're going to talk about the book of Hebrews, chapter 13 specifically today for a little bit. I'm out in my shop. I thought I'd change up the venue a little bit. Some of you all were disturbed by how many weird things were behind me sitting in my office. I think on yesterday's video, so this should give you stimulus overload. There's no telling what you can see behind me. Years of collections of all kinds of things. You'll probably spend more time looking at that stuff than you are listening to me. But Hebrews is a fascinating book. You know, we've debated for years actually who wrote the book of Hebrews. I tend to lean toward the basic philosophy that Paul wrote it, I think late in his life. I do think it was written before the destruction of Jerusalem, as most commentators think, because they seem to talk like Jerusalem is still in existence and the Jewish faith, of course, thus the term Hebrews. Clement of Rome, late 1st century, 2nd century leader in the church in Rome that Paul references in his writings, believed that Paul wrote it. He gave a Paul authorship stamp of approval. He actually think Paul wrote it in Hebrew, and that Luke translated into Greek. I don't know if I believe that, but nonetheless, I kind of think Paul wrote it. If Paul didn't write it, I'd like to think maybe Priscilla and Aquila did, Priscilla being the lead on that, but that's just a cool slant. Nonetheless, book of Hebrews, and 13 is the very end of the book. Now, the whole book is powerful. We've talked about it before. I've referenced Hebrews 5, how I think the latter part of Hebrews 5 was written for seniors after spring break, which is exactly where you all are. But Hebrews 13, the author, Paul or whoever it is closing it out. And he's going to talk about all kinds of things, being hospitality to strangers, taking people in, feeling like you're in chains with the prisoners. That may have been actual jail type, prison type thing, or it may have been political religious prisoners like Christians themselves because of the persecutions that are going on that are referenced in chapter 10 and some other places in the book. A lot of Roman persecution of Christians. So it also talks about marriage and how marriage should be undefiled and it's honorable, and you need to take care of the marriage because that is our greatest weapon as a Christian home as far as the kingdom is concerned, and raising children of faith and so on and so on. So a fantastic book. Read chapter 13. Give it a quick read, easy to read version, Message. I read it again this morning in the English Standard just for something different, and it's powerful every time. I actually took a course in college, Hebrews. That's one of my Bible classes in college with Brother Walters, and I remember some of that. Studying back through there, there's some things. In fact, there's at least one question on your sheet that popped up to me in my memory. But starts off there, and he talks about love, and we need to continue to love one another right off the bat. And I won't go on to all Greek words for love, but the Greek word that is used here at the very beginning, continue to love one another with brotherly love, is phileo, just like in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. So the Greek word is phileo. You can spell that however you want. Start it with a PH and you'll be good. Phileo, brotherly love. So it's not quite agape love like Christ love, but it is still a high level of love. You're going to love them like a brother. Remember, there's two kinds of family. Family you're given and family you choose. And so he's saying continue to love each other through all these tough times and things that are going on. That is good coffee this morning. Woo! Need that, or afternoon or night or last night. I don't even know. But anyway, phileo is the Greek word for love here at the beginning of the book of Hebrews. Then he goes on and he talks about in verse 5 about being content. And we've talked about this so many times. Be content with what God has given you. Be happy with how you are blessed. And again, in these strange times, we sort of forget maybe, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, how much we have. And I hope when we get through all of this, we're able not just to count our blessings, but be grateful each day for even the smallest of things. Be able to shake a hand and give a big hug to somebody like we want to. And so he talks about being content in verse 5. But this is actually a parallel to Philippians 4 that we all know. Paul says, I learned to be content in whatever the situation. And of course, that leads up to, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, Philippians 4:13. But Philippians 4 is the parallel here to Hebrews 13:5. Be content. Be content. And remember, money's not going to buy that happiness. It comes in handy in these days with people out of jobs and crazy turmoil, and the stock market's tanking and the world economy going crazy. I understand. But we kind of learned that we don't need as much maybe in days like these. We can actually survive. And so all this other stuff is just extras, and it won't buy happiness. Verse 5, this is one of the things I remember Brother Walter's class. Verse 5 also in the Greek, he actually is going to quote Deuteronomy chapter 31 here. And you all know this scripture, Deuteronomy 31:6, because we sing it, be strong and courageous and do not be afraid, I'll never forsake you. Okay, it's a little musical interlude for the day. But he actually quotes that Hebrew writer in verse 5, Deuteronomy 31:6, where he said, God says, I will never forsake you. But it's interesting in the Greek, and this is what I remember from Brother Walter's class, that there's 5 negatives. If it's verse 5, and this is how I remember it, it's Hebrews 13:5 has 5 negatives. Verse 5 has 5 negatives in the Greek. Now, English language, that blows our mind. I'm not, Mr. Thomas Miss Arnold can help you all out with that. But there's 5 negatives in the Greek language, and it actually reads, I will not leave thee. I will never forsake thee. I will not leave thee. I will never forsake thee. 5 different negatives in there in the Greek language. Stating, restating, and overstating. God says, I'll never leave you. I will never leave you. I am here for you no matter what. I am always there. Even when you don't feel my presence, you should feel my presence, because I'm always there. I'll never leave you. 5 negatives, just stating and overstating that God is with us all the time. This is actually also, there's a quote from Psalm 118 here. Psalm 118 turns right around and quotes Psalm 118, where it's saying, look, and I'm totally blanked. You think I'd memorize this stuff better than this, but Psalm 118, where he talks about how powerful God is, and God is our rock. Who should we fear? God is on our side. Who shall we fear? And God is our rock. And Psalm 118 is the answer to the question there. I remember that and blanked out on what it said there. Maybe I need more coffee. No, that's probably not going to help, but it tastes pretty good. Down in verse 8, a very powerful verse that many of you all know, or have you've heard before, but you may not know where it comes from. Verse 8, where Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And that is so true. And as seniors, leaving off, and I don't know, we're going to do graduation somehow, and we're going to celebrate you guys somehow, and then we're going to say our goodbyes properly somehow. But you need to remember that. If you let that sink in way down deep, let that burn in real good. Jesus Christ is the same. As the world changes and everything's crazy, and politics change, and world climate changes, and people change, and technology changes and changes and changes and changes, Jesus Christ is the same. I know I've talked about before my maternal grandfather, my mom's dad, that was born in 1902. He lived to be 100 and passed away, of course, in 2002. But 1902, and I think about the changes in his lifetime. And I mean, he was born when Teddy Roosevelt was president. He was born in Oklahoma, and it wasn't a state; it was a territory. He was born before the Wright brothers, tried to fly their little Kitty Hawk plane there. And so, and I think about, think about the things we have. But I also know that Jesus Christ was his Savior, and Jesus Christ hadn't changed. It's always the same. Verse 9 reassures us that the most important thing, more important than rituals and rules and this is the way you do this and this and this is grace. Because there's a lot of false teachers at the time, trying to steer them away like there is now. There'll always be false teachers. I think there'll always be people trying to teach different things. And he said, it's not about the rites and the rituals and all this is going on, and it's all about the grace. Your faith should be established in the grace. And that's the foundation of it. The grace that's going to forgive our sins. The grace through faith is what saves us. So grace is the most important thing. And then he kind of starts ending up and he says, don't forget this. And you shouldn't forget this either. As you go out in the world, Jesus Christ is the great shepherd. He is the great shepherd. He's going to let you walk. You know what shepherds do? They're going to let you go where you want to go. They're going to wander. The sheep are going to wander, and they're going to graze, and they're going to hop the stream and he's just protecting you and just kind of steering you to greener pastures. But you've got to be willing to listen. You get obnoxious and do your own thing, and you're lost. He can't make you do those things, but he's going to steer you, and there's times he's going to be a little harsh. He's going to say the best thing for you is this and this, and follow these things, and he's going to remind us, and we're going to see it, but we've got to be willing to listen. That's what there's so many analogies from Jesus himself and all through the scriptures about the shepherd. The sheep know the shepherd's voice, and he comes in by the good shepherd comes in by the true gate, and not climbing over like a thief to steal the sheep. So Jesus Christ is the good shepherd, and we need to remember that. Go read Hebrews 13. It's a quick read. I know you got your answers. I think you got them all. If you didn't, you can jump on and ask me today in class, of course. But I love you guys. Hebrews 13. Excellent. I hope that your mind wasn't blown by all the distractions behind me. There is no telling what is hanging up there. If you have questions about those things, you can definitely jump on and ask me those things too. Love you guys. Praying for you every day.